Think of someone you didn't really notice at first. Maybe it's a barista or a coworker a few desks down. The first time you saw them, they were just another face. But weeks later, on an ordinary Tuesday, you look forward to seeing them. We usually have a ready explanation for this shift. We tell ourselves we just clicked, or that they have a good energy, or that there's a natural chemistry building between us. But nothing about them actually changed. You might not have even spoken to them or learned a single new fact about their life. You are feeling drawn to a person based on zero new information. You didn't consciously decide to start liking them. Your brain made that choice for you, quietly, using a hidden mechanism based entirely on physical logistics. A large portion of what we romanticize as human chemistry is actually a mechanical rule running in the background, tricking our minds into feeling a connection. Back in 1968, a psychologist named Robert Zajonc ran a series of experiments to isolate this exact phenomenon. He wanted to strip away conversation and shared interests to see what happens with pure, repeated exposure. He showed test subjects things they had never seen before: nonsense words, strange symbols, and, as you see here, individual Chinese characters shown to people who couldn't read the language. This chart plots the results, and the pattern is remarkably clean. The more times a person saw a specific symbol, the more they reported liking it. They learned nothing new about the images, yet exposure alone drove their preference upward. Zajonc called it the mere exposure effect. You could easily argue that reacting to symbols in a lab is one thing, and evaluating real people is another. But a 1992 study took this out of the lab. Researchers had 4 women act as silent visitors in a massive, crowded college lecture hall. They didn't speak or interact. They simply attended different numbers of sessions. One never showed up, while another attended 15 times. At the end of the term, students rated photos of these women. The woman who silently attended 15 sessions scored the highest on attractiveness and likability, even though almost none could actually remember seeing her face. The familiarity worked completely underground. Physical presence alone completely bypassed conscious memory to manufacture a genuine feeling of warmth. The engine running this illusion is something psychologists call processing fluency. In simple terms, fluency is a measure of how smoothly your brain handles a piece of information. The first time you see a new face, your mind burns heavy energy decoding it, sorting the features and building a pattern. But by the 10th time, that work is mostly done. Recognizing that face becomes effortless and entirely frictionless. Here is where the brain makes a fascinating error. It notices that smooth processing, but it doesn't know where the ease came from, so it guesses. It assumes that because a face is easy to process, the person must be agreeable, trustworthy, and good. The psychological comfort you feel in their presence is a very real sensation, but the story you tell yourself about why you feel it is entirely wrong. This visual shows the hard limits of the rule. If you plot the relationship between exposure and fondness, the curve doesn't rise forever. It climbs sharply for the first 10 to 20 encounters, flattens out, and eventually too much repetition tips over into pure annoyance. The starting point also matters. The mere exposure effect only amplifies your baseline feeling. If someone makes a terrible first impression, seeing them 10 more times won't fix it. It just makes your brain highly fluent at being irritated by them. Context is the final guardrail. Repetition only converts into fondness if the environment is relatively safe and calm. Seeing someone every day in a low-stress setting builds warmth. Seeing them every day in a place where you feel anxious or cornered does the exact opposite, which exposes the darker side of this mechanism. Manipulative people can weaponize persistence, relentlessly inserting themselves into your weekly routine. They use their constant presence to hijack your brain's fluency engine, making themselves feel normal and building a dangerous amount of unearned trust. Familiarity is not automatically your friend. It is a blind, mechanical algorithm, and its value depends entirely on what happens to be riding on it. Look closely at the people you've ended up closest to in your own life. Were those bonds truly forged by destiny and perfectly aligned souls? Or did they start just because of where you happen to be standing? A classic 1950 study by Leon Festinger examined friendships in student housing. Researchers expected shared interests to drive the social groups, but they found that sheer physical proximity was the ultimate predictor of who became friends. This floor plan visualizes the math. The probability of forming a close friendship burned brightest with immediate neighbors and dropped off drastically the further down the hallway a person lived. By the end of the hall, the odds were incredibly slim. We spend enormous amounts of energy agonizing over making the perfect first impression. We panic in dating, in friendships, and at new jobs, acting like we get one single high-stakes shot to dazzle someone. Trying to be instantly unforgettable is aiming at the wrong target. The real foundation of human connection is woven through unremarkable, low-stakes repetition. If you want someone to feel drawn to you, the strategy is completely counterintuitive. Don't perform. Don't try to be the most interesting person in the room. Just show up, calmly and regularly, in the exact same everyday places they already are. Being a steady, ordinary presence is actually a massive advantage. The human brain reads ordinary behavior as safe, and safety is the exact soil required for genuine liking to take root. Connection isn't an exclusive prize reserved for the boldest, the most charismatic, or the perfectly polished. It is freely available to the consistent. There is something deeply reassuring about understanding this invisible trick of the mind. It means your most cherished relationships didn't require you to deliver a perfect opening line. They grew simply because two people kept ending up in the same room, proving you don't have to be flawless to be loved. You just have to be present.